We return to Strange New Worlds as the Enterprise heads to the Majalan system, a place that Pike has actually been before, but this is just supposed to be a routine survey this time. Uhura is also involved with things, as her training rotation has put her in security now, which means answering to La'an as her boss. And as much as I enjoy her character, even I wouldn't want that. The fun is interrupted by what looks like an act of piracy. A shuttle is shot at and disabled by a larger craft, which then grabs it with tethers. The shuttle asks for help, so Pike tells the attackers they better pick up the phone or he'll be obligated to intervene. Well, that wasn't very nice. It's not doing much, but they can't just let them keep shooting at them, so Pike says to gently disable them. That should be no problem, except there's a cadet operating the phasers, so when they get hit, her attempt to graze them instead slices the ship in half. Oops. Is this going to be on the final? Pike and Una head down to the transporter room to beam over the people from the shuttle. Only one of them is Allura, someone Pike met the last time he was out here. Small system. Down in sickbay, Dr. Mabenga is reading from a fairy tale book to his daughter, who's been materialized for this little family time. Alas, she gets auto-beamed away, drawing it to a close. But it is just in time for the kid from the ship to get looked over. And the kid is special. He's called the First Servant, a religious figure chosen by lottery at birth to embody what they represent. He was undergoing training on that world and was being brought back when those other guys attacked, wanting the child. They probably wanted to hold him for ransom, as in 2 days, the First Servant will take the throne, so it's a big deal. La'an brings up investigating the remains of the attacker's ship for more details, and Allura is like, "Oh, no, don't trouble yourselves." But seeing as how they shot it down, they sort of have to, no matter how much she tries to dissuade them until she says, "Fine, but I'm going with you." Meanwhile, the kid is getting looked over, and he's got a little damage in his head from the impact, but nothing they can't cure.
Please keep that butcher's knife away from the First Servant.
Eesh, Mr. Diplomacy here. He fiddles with their instruments and scans the quantum bio-implants, make sure they're all sorted out. You know, that old trick. He throws shade on their primitive medical facility.
In my clinic, healing begins at a subatomic level.
That's just stupid.
Well, Dr. Mabenga is interested in the potential elimination of disease that this represents.
On Majalis, we have a saying. Let the tree that grows from the roots of sacrifice lift us where suffering cannot reach.
Wow, maybe your fancy medical tech can heal that tortured proverb. Down at the crash site, it wouldn't be Paramount Plus Trek without a techno crane. After, justifiably, rebuking Uhura for nearly touching something instead of using her tricorder, La'an says it's safe to let the others look about. Spock finds a small skullcap-like device, and Allura finds an oath coin given to those who swear to protect the First Servant. One side of it has been defaced, meaning that either one of them has forsaken his oath or is planning to fight Batman. As outsiders, the Federation isn't welcome on Majalis, but Allura is willing to let Pike join her as a guest, which would also allow him to help her look for any Oathbreaker guards. Back on the Enterprise, Spock says that the device is some kind of neural dampener, and from the size, presumably meant for the kid. He's a precocious one. Upon learning of Spock's position as science officer, the kid wants to talk subspace physics with him, until finally the dad says the kid needs his rest. He's got a big day of becoming their grand poobah coming up. To snoop out the traitor, Allura requires the guards, seemingly as a purely ceremonial act, to renew their vows, which would require their oath coins, of course. One of the guys has a damaged case, but it could be nothing. On the other hand, so they finally chase him down.
It's not on stun.
Why? He says he did what he did to fulfill his oath and to end this hell, finishing with a cry of "Long live the First Servant." That adds up to a whole lot of confusing. In other news, La'an stops by Uhura to give her a task. Translates some data that she stole from the crash site. She can't do it through the computer, that would get noticed, and she's not supposed to do that. But rules exist so that you can laugh as you break them. Meanwhile, Dr. Mabenga is amazed that the damage to the first servant is completely cured. No sign that there was ever even a problem. This could be a cure for his daughter, too. The kid's dad confirms it, but he can't actually do it. It's against the rules, and this guy never laughs. Down on the planet, Allura is distraught that someone would do this, and if one would, who else would? Pike offers to stand guard, and she says yes. Stand guard over Mabute! After Nookie time, they talk a little about their previous encounter, them both wanting it to lead to something more, but it didn't. Well, they're making up for lost time. And speaking of time, their conversation leads to his future role as Davros, and she brings up their super advanced medicine, only it comes back to the same point the kid's dad had made. Only one of their own can be treated. They're really strict about out-of-network treatments. The kid's actually having a blast with Dr. Mabenga's daughter. Both probably don't get enough time to play with other children, one being in a learning institution all the time and the other inside of a machine most days. Meanwhile, Uhura has cracked what La'an needs to know, and she thinks Pike needs to know it too. Well, he's not particularly happy with this round of cock-blocking, but Uhura explains that the colony that attacked came from Prospect 7, which was named by the Department of Irony because its prospects are bad. They're barely subsistence. But what's more, the people there speak a language that is related to that of Majalis, an impossibility unless they were, in fact, from Majalis originally. And if that's the case, why would the Majalans keep insisting that they were aliens? And to compound matters, the kid and his dad are in the transporter room waiting to beam down, and when Pike says he has concerns, they both beam away. Well, what looks like an attempt to just leave with a "fuck you very much," it's actually another kidnapping. The dad gets dumped back on Enterprise. Lucky them. They catch the ship in a tractor beam, but those people are really determined. They try to go to warp anyway, even though the strain could destroy them. Pike finally has to back down, as it's rather hard to rescue a hostage if you kill them first. That would look bad. See, doesn't that look bad? But it seems that it's even worse than that. The first servant apparently doesn't serve some symbolic role. He's necessary for the continuation of their society in a very literal sense.
Majalis will fall out of the sky. Will be destroyed.
How can any of that rest on the fate of one child?
Men. Well, Uhura figures out that the kidnapping was arranged by the kid's father, and what's weirder, Spock had figured out that the kid wasn't on the cruiser when it exploded. He'd been beamed back here and stored in this big crate. Well, the kid sure is there and anxious to get down to complete the ceremony while there's still time. All well and good, but things aren't adding up for Pike, and he questions Allura about it, while number one questions the father, who says he was trying to use the neural device to make the first servant unable to fulfill his role. And we soon learn why. He's taken to the sacred chamber.
Do you freely offer this gift of self to the people of Majalis?
With joy and gratitude, I do.
Yeah, but is that really informed permission or just him reciting lines he was told to say? I mean, look at that kid. He's not even old enough for R. Kelly to want to pee on him. The corpse of a child is taken away, and the first servant is put into the chair, locked in, and integrated with it. Pike resists and gets knocked out, and when he comes to, she finally explains what's happening. This is pretty much a retelling of the sci-fi classic The Ones Who Walk Away from Omelas by Ursula K. Le Guin, 50 years ago actually. It tells of the place called Omelas, a wondrous place so perfect as to seem almost like a fairy tale. When children come of age, though, they are then told the secret of this place. In order for this all to remain, one child must live in filth, darkness, and misery. They are then given a choice: leave the perfection of Omelas, or accept that their perfect lives come at the expense of one suffering in the dark. It's an allegory of how a society is often built on the misery of others, and how we might find ways to justify that misery. It's timeless, encompassing the totality of the human capacity to find suffering acceptable so long as it serves a purpose. From bystanders in war, to exploitive labor, to destroying the livelihoods of the innocent, there's a human capacity to say that the suffering that comes is justified given the benefits that will spring from it. The human capacity for rationalization is simply extraordinary. Not a week goes by that I don't hear someone say something that reminds me of this scene from Blackadder.
Field Marshal Haig is most anxious to eliminate all these German spies.
Filthy Hun weasels fighting their dirty, underhand war.
Unfortunately, one of our spies...
Splendid fellows, brave heroes.
In this episode, Allura does the same thing. She claims that what they do is no different than the Federation, because surely some child, somewhere, suffers to allow the Federation to be what it is. Now, yes, I just said that it's an allegory for that kind of thing, but it doesn't mean that the two are the same thing. No, not by a long shot, because baked into that's a horrifying misunderstanding. When a child suffers in the Federation, it's a failure in the system. When a child suffers here, it is the system. That child didn't suffer despite your best efforts. That child suffers because of your best efforts. End results being the same doesn't mean intent is nothing. It may change nothing for them, but it changes everything about who you are. Especially the claim, we don't look away. Really? Because I see no one holding a vigil with that kid. I see no one ensuring that whatever he goes through, he's not alone. I see no huge screen showing what is propping up your civilization. Human rationalization for inflicting misery, a subset of the fallout notion that war never changes. Contrary to some assertions, the prime directive doesn't come up here. I mean, not stated or implied, it doesn't come up. Because Pike can't do anything. Not because he's not allowed to interfere, but because interference would only kill the child, which would of course defeat the purpose of any action. All he can do is leave, like all who will not live on the back of this suffering. But one good thing to come from this encounter, the kid's father, who is going to Prospect 7 now, offers to at least provide the first step in dealing with the case of Dr. Mabenga's daughter. So at least there's a move for a little less suffering in the galaxy. Sometimes you just have to settle for what you can get.
All hail the Overlord! All hail the Overlord!
And are directed according to the grand plan.
Would that be the plan, to continue with total slaughter until everyone's dead except Field Marshal Haig, Lady Haig, and their tortoise, Alan?